Mewtwo is one of the most iconic mons in the world. No, seriously, it's since like Generation 1, it's been very many favorites. It's my favorite Gen 1 legendary. It had its own movie, it's extremely powerful, and at one point it actually wasn't so strong. So it was actually it actually used to not be like over 4,000. At one point, if I remember, I think this was like Generation 2, they did a CP rework, and Mewtwo was actually buffed. Now, Mewtwo is really great for several reasons. It has few resistances and weaknesses as well. But the problem is in Master League, there's actually some like in Master League of notable ones, probably Giratina O. Well, Giratina is the biggest one as far as like Master League, and it resists, so that's just its weaknesses. Other than that, there's nothing that really threatens hard for Mewtwo. That being said, we're looking at Shadow Mewtwo. It's because of that, Mewtwo is a ridiculously high attack. If you add Shadow to it, it does an obscene amount of damage. You will either take Switch, or you will get shields with Shadow Mewtwo for sure. Now, Shadow Mewtwo, very high attack. The problem with Shadow Mewtwo is that you need to use Elite TMs. To get Side Strike, you need to use two. Shadow Mewtwo, if you want to get the best moveset, it's extremely expensive. 2 Elite TMs and 100k dust, and anything at level 40 costs a humongous amount of dust. Level 40 plus the 100k and then all that candy equals you're going to spend a lot of money for your Mewtwo. Now, Mewtwo is extremely powerful. Like I said, it has a shiny too, but the Shadow version is what we're looking at. Not only that, you can only get the Shadow if you play the Go Fest event, so that's the only way you can get your Shadow Mewtwo. It's unknown if you're going to be able to get to another one, but I just have one thing to say. If you have a Shadow Hundo Mewtwo, I hate you, and at level 41, this thing is monstrous. So Shadow Mewtwo actually ranks at number 18. That's not a bad position, but you need Side Strike Shadow Ball. Regular Mewtwo ranks much higher, just because that bulk actually kind of matters. And with Focus Blast, it gives it coverage against a lot of movesets. We'll look at Shadow Mewtwo with Focus Blast, but Side Strike Shadow Ball is probably the way to go just because it gives you that Gira O coverage. If you see Giratina Origins, you do need Shadow Ball to flip a ton of matchups, but it's really interesting because if you don't shield against Shadow Mewtwo, you take a ton of damage because Side Strike just does an enormous amount of damage. As you see, it's best used as a safe switch. As a lead, Shadow Mewtwo ranks at number 16. So kind of not great as a lead, but its true strength relies in the switch condition. As you see, it's the number 2 switch in the game, behind its regular cousin and Groudon itself. The reason why it's so good is because it actually beats Dialga, Giratina, Melmetal, Kyogre. It beats pretty much it beats BBML. So it beats not really Groudon, so it beats a majority of the BBML, which would be Dialga, Giratina, Melmetal, Kyogre, and Dragonite. So as a switch, Shadow Mewtwo will get you shields, or it will get you back switch advantage. Either one. If they don't shield, it sucks and it's going to hurt, and you'll see why in the Matrix. As a closer, Shadow Mewtwo ranks at number 24. Not great as a closer, best used as a switch. The reason being is because it's just not bulky. That bulk with Mewtwo really does matter in closing scenarios. Up shields or even shields, Mewtwo Shadow is a beast. Alright, so we got the 2 shield, we got Shadow Mewtwo with Side Strike Shadow Ball. I also put Side Strike's Focus Blast here. We're not going to do anything fancy. Level 40, Side Strike, Shadow Ball, Focus Blast, and we got the regular one just so we could compare. Here's the 2 shield. Anything notable we flip. As you see, Shadow versus regular matters. The matchup versus Dialga, it's really bad. 200 points bad, in fact. You beat Dragonite, Garchomp, but you lose. Regular Mewtwo does not beat Dragonite or Garchomp in the lead in the 2 shield. You also lose against Groudon. You can beat. The interesting about Shadow Mewtwo is that in the 2 shield you actually beat Groudon. Well, this is like straight Side Strike, so you literally just go straight Side Strike. Bam, bam, bam. 110 damage. So one Side Strike does 110 damage. In other words, you take out more than 50% of Groudon's health with a Side Strike Mewtwo or Shy Strike Shadow Mewtwo. It's nuts. Just that's why it's kind of weird how like Shadow Mewtwo, like I said, you'll take shields or you'll take switch, either one. But in the lead, I wouldn't recommend Shadow Mewtwo. But if you do catch some things, you do beat a lot of interesting matchups. For example, you beat Machamp. Obviously you're gonna beat Machamp though. Anything psychic is you. Do you know how much damage a Shadow Mewtwo does against a Machamp? If Side Strike lands, you deal over 200% of its HP. Well, actually 100%. Well, almost. Yeah, you pretty much you one shot it. You do 150% of its like HP. It's just nuts how much damage it does. As you see, you beat Metagross too, which is really interesting. You beat it with the Side Strike. You can just beat it like you focus blast it to death. You have to bait with Side Strike. But even if you don't do that, lighting the Side Strike, it does so much damage. If we go to Sandbox mode, you don't shield this, you don't shield this attack. Watch what happens. 43 damage. That's still a quarter of Metagross's health. Mind you, this thing double resists you. Psychic and Steel double resist Psychic, but you still do a quarter of its health. That's how much damage Shadow Mewtwo does. Now, Mewtwo beats Rhyperior, beats Raikou, beats Swampert. You lose against Togekiss hard. This is why in the lead, it's not recommended. Togekiss just laughs at you, shields your Side Strikes, and charms you down. However, you take both shields. So if the Togekiss actually doesn't shield anything, watch what happens. You do 115 points of damage. So you also, if they only shield one Side Strike, you also simultaneously knock each other out. So you're gonna come out of this with 2 shields, which is nuts. You're gonna come out of it's just absolutely maddening how much Shadow Mewtwo. So remember how I told you, you're gonna take shield or switch, either one. It's going to hurt a lot. Now that's a 2 shield. Best used in the switch. Like in the switch, you could beat a lot of things. Like Dialga, it's actually a really bad matchup, but with Dialga, they kind of have to shield. Side Strike, if Side Strike is unshielded, it does a ton of damage. So if you unshield, 74 points. So that's over a third of its health. So your opponent's going to be prompted to shield. If they don't shield, they'll still beat you with Dialga, but you're gonna get shield. You'll get look at how much damage. That's a lot of damage. So that's best. But like best used as a switch. In the 1 shield, Mewtwo shines. Shadow Mewtwo is able to beat Dialga. It can be Dialga at this point, straight Side Strike. I think you have the Side Strike than Shadow Ball, but I think it's just no, you Focus Blast actually. So the Focus Blast variation does beat Dialga. The Shadow Ball variant doesn't. So the thing about Dialga is you need Focus Blast to beat Dialga. You also need Focus Blast to beat a majority of some Steel types. For example, you need it to beat Metagross. You could use Shadow Ball too, but only Shadow Ball to beat Metagross. But you need Dialga and Melmetal. As you see, you need it to beat Steel types or pure Steel types. Shadow Ball, since Metagross is a Psychic type, Shadow Ball does super effective damage. That's why it has such a strong matchup. And you'll also beat Mewtwo in the mirror. So as you see, Mewtwo switch is just nuts. It's super powerful, super strong, and really, really amazing. Especially in the switch. In the zeros, this is where it gets kind of dicey because since Mewtwo doesn't have a lot of bulk, Shadow Mewtwo actually loses a lot of matchups in the closer. As you see in the closer, Mewtwo beats Conkeldurr. Of course, you're going to destroy. You're going to beat every fighter in the closer just because Side Strike is just going to nuke you. With Shadow Ball, you beat Metagross, and you also beat Lugia. But the thing about it, if you look at a lot of matchups with Shadow Ball, Focus Blast does flip matchups. You flip the matchup with Garchomp if you have Focus Blast. You also flip the Heat Tread matchup. In other words, like, as you see here, you beat Mewtwo and Metagross. In other words, whatever is weak to Shadow Ball is going to one-shot it, of course, and whatever is weak to Focus Blast is what you're going to flip too. As you see here, Focus Blast actually, like a lot of these matchups, the Focus Blast variant takes out Swampert. and Rhyperior, you lose again. You also beat Togekiss in the closer. So Togekiss also loses in the closer. I think you have to do 2 Side Strikes to kill it. Yeah, so you do need 2 Side Strikes to take out Togekiss. But 2 Side Strikes is only 5 Psycho Cuts, which is 45 energy. 10 Psycho Cuts actually nukes this poor thing to death. So Togekiss does get yeeted. Now, up a shield, Shadow Mewtwo, end your life. Well, majority of lives. Like, with the Shadow Ball, Side Strike, and Shadow Ball variant, it actually destroys everything in the meta. You actually annihilate everything. The Focus Blast, not so much, just because with Lugia is so bulky that you need Shadow Ball to take it out, and it resists Side Strike, so that's why you need. But you destroy everything. Up 2 shields. It's almost well, actually, yeah, it's up 2 shields. The up up a shield, you only lose against Lugia. That's just how powerful Shadow Mewtwo is. So if you have shield advantage, having 1 shield, you beat everything but Lugia. And Lugia is not really that common in GBL to begin with, so it's not like you're gonna see Mewtwo. You're not gonna see Lugia as like flying all across the stratosphere of Pokemon Go Battle League. So as you see here, Mewtwo is just nuts. Absolutely maddening up shields. Even 1 shield allows you to defeat everything in the meta except for Lugia. Well, you actually beat you'll beat Lugia with Shadow Ball. So you beat everything as long as you have Shadow Ball. Other than that, even Focus Blast actually beats everything too. Even regular Mewtwo beats everything but Lugia with up a shield. That's just how powerful Mewtwo is. And that's just how much an attack matters. Now, that's the 2 shield. Now, how about the 2-to-1s? The 2-to-1s might be a little different story. I always like looking at the 2-to-1s just because it might flip some matchups. As you see here, you do still lose against Dialga, Gear Altered, but you beat everything else up 2-to-1 shield. So having shield advantage in the 2-to-1s, you still beat a lot of matchups. A lot. Now, the 0 shields is where everything gets really interesting, because what do you one-shot, what do you not one-shot if you have Side Strike, Shadow Ball, or Focus Blast? So oh wait, hold on, I forgot to do this, okay. Do that, and then we go 0s, and poof. So if you see in the 0s, you're going to be you pretty much beat all Steel type, or not all Psychic types with Shadow Ball. With Shadow Ball, you get that answer versus Metagross and Mewtwo, so that's you take out Psychic types with Shadow Ball. That's the primary reason you want Shadow Ball. Even if you have Shadow Ball, you still lose against Gear Altered and Gear Origin, so just keep that in mind. You're still going to lose against Big Ghost Dragon. Regular Mewtwo with Focus Blast, though, it actually covers, as you see, it covers a wide range of Mons. So the as you see, Shadow and the regular version, they do really matter. Just because that extra bulk you have actually allows you, for example, let's use Kyogre for an example. With Shadow Mewtwo, you don't get to 2 Side Strikes. You die really fast. But with regular Mewtwo, you're able to get to 2 Side Strikes to finish off Kyogre. The trade-off is just a lot. But if you have Energy Lead, I don't think you KO even with Energy Lead. So let's assume you have like, wait, hold on, it didn't fire. Yeah, it never fired. Wait, hold on, 1, 2. Yeah, it never fired. It didn't fire anything. Why not? Yeah, Kyogre still wins. As you see, you don't one-shot Kyogre. You might be able to flip this because you have 18 bits of energy. So if you're ahead on energy, you can flip this matchup. Just be aware that Shadow Mewtwo is really squishy. Or not really squishy, he's squishy, so just be careful. And as you see, like, Focus Blast and Shadow Ball do matter. With Focus Blast, you're able to cover your Steel types. Without Focus Blast, you cover Psychic types. So it just good to remember which ones you beat and which you don't beat. A good note of thumb is that regardless of which version you have, you actually beat Snorlax and Togekiss with either one. That's just because you straight Side Strike them to death. So Side Strike, you Focus Blast if you have Focus Blast. Otherwise, you could just go straight Side Strike, and that's GG's. Now, Up Shield's Mewtwo is a monster. So Up Shield Shadow Mewtwo is crazy. It actually beats everything. Nothing in the Up Shields Mewtwo beats everything. There's nothing that can stop you. Well, except Lugia. Like we mentioned before, Lugia. Lugia's the only one, unless you have Shadow Ball, then Lugia is the only thing that can beat you if you have Focus Blast Side Strike. Up 2 shields, I believe that changes. So up 2 shields, you can win. The Shadow version with Side Strike Focus Blast doesn't beat Lugia though, so just keep that in mind. If you have Side Strike Shadow, if you have, I'm guessing this version, the regular version's able to survive. So there is a huge difference between regular and Shadow. Regular and Shadow do flip matchups. Oh, yeah, regular and Shadow do flip matchups. So just keep that in mind, just because of the bulk. Bulk actually matters. Mewtwo already has a stupid high attack. Give it a little more power, it gives it more one-shot potential. It's scary because you need, like, it really gets your opponent to think, I need to shield, or they need their shield. So, like I said, it's going to give you switch, or it's going to give you shield advantage, either one. Alright, as you see 2-to-1s, now the 2-to-1s is kind of risky because if you see the Gira matchup, Shadow Mewtwo actually loses in the 2-to-1s. Up a shield, regular Mewtwo can beat Giratina with Side Strike, but just keep that in mind. If you're up in the zeros and the ones, in the zeros things change, but if they do have a shield, as you see here, that matters. The extra damage matters. You don't beat Gear Altered with a Shadow version, but with regular Mewtwo, you do beat it. However, it looks like, yeah, it looks, but in the 2-to-1s, you still beat a majority of the meta. You'll still beat a vast majority of the meta. The exception of Dialga. Dialga will just Dragon Breath you down. You can win with Focus Blast, but I believe this is really bait dependent because if they call the Focus Blast, you lose. For example, if they don't shield here, if you go in the sandbox mode, if they don't shield here, they still live. They still can live. As you see, there's still like HP left. So the result will be the same. However, if they shield the Focus Blast, Dialga wins this matchup. So you have to call the Side Strike bait. Otherwise, yeah, you have to get the bait. Otherwise, Dialga wins, as you see right here. Focus Blast is what ends up actually beating Dialga. So, in summary, Mewtwo's a really interesting mon. The Shadow Mewtwo, Shadow Mewtwo is really interesting, but it really depends what you carry with it. As you see here, even if you have mirror movesets, like with Focus Blast, with the regular versus Shadow, you lose against Gear Altered just because of your bulk. The regular version beats you, but the Shadow version does not, just because of, see how it could just go straight Dragon Claw. So there are matchups that matter as far as like Shadow Mewtwo versus regular Mewtwo. If you run Shadow Mewtwo, I'd just be aware you're kind of just using it to just gain shield advantage or switch. The regular Mewtwo, if you see in the rankings, it works better as a closer. Actually, it just works better overall than Shadow Mewtwo. Shadow Mewtwo's terrifying. But overall, Mewtwo compared to Shadow Mewtwo, you see how you have a strong closer rating? Like, you're pretty strong in all scenarios with regular Mewtwo. Shadow Mewtwo, you're only strong in the switch scenario. So Shadow Mewtwo is only strong as a switch. If you do end up, if it has energy lead and shield advantage, it's a monster. But if you don't have that, because of how squishy it is, it's going to take a lot of damage, and you're probably going to lose Mewtwo. Also, Shadow Mewtwo really can't take any like fast moves. So any charge moves. So if you're trying to have Shadow Mewtwo take a Surf, it probably can, but it's probably going to be nearly dead from a Kyogre, because Kyogre with Surf just hurts a lot. Anyways, that's the video, guys. If you guys want to use Shadow Mewtwo, I'm not opposed to it. It's really great switch. Like I said, it's a really good switch, but really be considerate of like what you want to use it with. Because regular Mewtwo does beat Shadow Mewtwo in some scenarios, just because of how squishy Shadow Mewtwo is. In fact, if you do the battle scenario and then we go to this, you'll just see how like the difference between Mewtwo and Shadow Mewtwo. At level 41, another good thing to know, at level 41, it doesn't matter much. Level 41 does a lot of damage, but there's no notable break or bulk points for Shadow Mewtwo that actually, like, make it to where it's really important. As you see here, Mewtwo versus Shadow Mewtwo loses the mirror, but you barely lose. I mean, yeah, it's just, if you look, it's just because you have Shadow Ball. Now, if they're up a shield, you win. But as you see, there are differences. So Mewtwo versus its mirror, but this is Mewtwo versus Dialga. This is Shadow Mewtwo versus Dialga. Watch what Dialga does. Dialga beats you in almost every scenario unless you're up to unless you're in the 0 to 1s or the 0 to 2s. So in other words, unless you're up a shield and they have 0 shields. Especially level 41 Dialga, oof, that's what it is. But the moves that matters, Focus Blast beats Steel, Psychic, Ghost beats Psychic. Anyways, you guys have a great day. I hope you guys, if you're considering, remember Shadow Mewtwo, as you see on the summary, is incredibly expensive. You need whatever you decide to go with, you might need 2 Elite TMs and a whole lot of Stardust. And unless you guys been playing for a while, you likely don't have all that candy to throw into Mewtwo, so you're going to have to wait quite a bit to get the rare candy to power it up. So just remember, it's expensive. There are matchups it flips if it's Shadow versus the regular one, so do your homework. You guys have a great one.